Penguin Random House Audio presents The Magic of Surrender, Finding the Courage to Let Go by me, Kute Blackson. For my mother, you taught me the real meaning of surrender, and your spirit lives on in my heart. Prologue. When the ring of my phone awakened me, I glanced out the window. The sun was not yet up. Deep in the pit of my stomach, I knew something was wrong. As my eyes came into focus, I glanced at the screen. It was my father. In my half-awake state, I fumbled to answer it, but before I could, it went to voicemail. I took a few deep breaths and then listened to the message that he had just recorded. Kute, it's your father. I need to speak to you. I rubbed my eyes and tried to wake myself as I called my father back. Dad, what's going on? I waited as the words traveled across the miles from Ghana to Los Angeles. Kute, I'm sorry, but I just got a phone call from your mother. It turns out she has cancer. I tried to breathe, but it was like I had forgotten how. I felt like a statue. Was my heart still beating? I couldn't tell. But if I didn't move, maybe it wouldn't be real. Finally, I heard my father saying my name, his voice insistent and impatient, waiting for me to answer. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm here. I need you to go to London. Of course, Dad. I'll get on the next flight. I hung up and called my mother, my heart beating frantically, as if it wanted to make up for those beats it had missed while I processed the news. Mom, I just got a phone call from Dad. What's going on? I tried to keep my voice steady, but I felt shaken to my core. My mother's calm voice came through, as if she were in the room with me. I went in for some tests last week. I didn't want you to worry. It's okay. There's nothing to do until they run a few more tests. Then we will know how the doctors plan to treat it. So, don't worry. It's okay. I'm okay. We spoke for a few more minutes, and she promised me that she'd call after the next round of tests. I was in a daze for the rest of the day. This was just like my mother to downplay something serious. Nothing ever rattled her. She always trusted that God had everything under control. She had a level of faith that I'd always found truly unbelievable. I like to say that I was born from this faith. My mother, a Japanese woman, agreed to marry my father, a healer from Ghana, before she had even met him. She was 28, considered an old maid in the eyes of her Japanese society. Though those around her worried about her prospects, she had faith, prayed daily that God would lead her to her husband. One day, she heard that a miracle man from Africa would be coming to visit the spiritual organization she was a part of. She immediately felt deep in her soul a knowing. This man will be your husband. She sent him a letter, with help from her sister, who spoke English. When my father received the letter, he had a knowing as well. This is my wife. He wrote back and asked whether she might be willing to move to Ghana. If it's God's will, she wrote in her second letter to him. My father wrote again and asked her to marry him, and she said yes. My parents did not speak a common language. They had never met when they agreed to be married. Didn't even know what the other looked like. The first time they saw each other, they had to communicate using dictionaries, which they did for years afterwards. It takes an intense level of faith to live your life that way. And yet, that was how my mother lived her life every single day. My mother said there was no reason for me to come to London until her first treatment. So, I stayed in touch with her daily until a few weeks later when I flew from Los Angeles to accompany her to her first appointment. When I arrived from the airport, I burst into her apartment and wrapped her in my arms. She still looked well. She still bantered with me like she always did. And as we headed to her appointment, her spirits were high. I'm ready for whatever God has in store for me. I'm at peace. Just like her prayer for her soulmate, she had no conditions on what would happen. She was open and trusting. In love, in life, surrendered. And now even facing death. We arrived at the clinic and she got hooked up to an IV that would transfer what we hoped would be life-saving chemicals into her body for 8 hours. We sat and talked about nothing and everything, laughing and joking like old times. And as I sat there soaking up her presence, I realized that it had been years since we had sat together with no agenda, nowhere to go, nowhere else to be. By the time the nurse came over to extract the IV, saying that the session was over, we looked at each other and laughed, both thinking the same thing. Over already? I wish we had more time. I flew back for each of her chemo sessions, spaced a few weeks apart. Sometimes my mother would fall asleep for an hour or so, and I would just look at her. Truly look at her in a way that I never had before. She had lived such an unusual and beautiful life. To go from everything she knew in Japan to living in Ghana, married to a man she barely knew, then giving birth to a mixed-race baby, all while not being able to speak the native language. Yet she grew in faith at each new phase that she faced. And here she was, starting one more chapter that would have more lessons for her. When she woke up, she looked at me, gazing at her. She could tell that while I treasured this time we were spending together, I was sad. I wasn't ready to lose my mother. She took my hands in hers. Kute, this is just another opportunity for my soul's growth. I'm not the body anyway. This is just a temporary vehicle for my spirit. This body is not who I really am. So, if it's time to shed this form, I'm ready. Maybe she was ready, but I still wanted her by my side. I still had so much of my life that I wanted her to witness. Marriage one day, children. There were so many experiences that I would have that she would miss if she died now. I just wanted more. More of her. More time. And it didn't seem fair. But as I spent time with my mother, I had to surrender to the fact that these were likely some of our last days. I knew that she was dying, and I could no longer resist the truth. And because of that, I could truly see the beauty in front of me, even as I embraced the sadness that I was losing her. As we took short walks, as we sat and talked about nothing and everything, as we worked together making sushi, cutting the cucumbers, stirring the rice, my soul was taking it all in. This is a miracle, this time together. Every single moment. After 3 months of chemo treatments, there was no improvement. For a time, the doctors thought they might perform surgery. But after yet another round of tests revealed that the cancer had progressed too much, they determined the surgery would no longer do any good. We had reached the end of our treatment options. Now, it was just about making her comfortable during her final days.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?